it's safe for us to start. If this is the first time you're taking a class with me, my name is Pamela and I am the face behind Buttercut Bakery. Before I start, I would like to mention that throughout the whole video, you can turn on your microphone and interrupt me at any given time. I have no problem. I will pause my video and I will answer your question. After we complete this class, I will be sending you an email. You will find a PDF. The PDF will summarize the whole class. You will find links to the tools and the ingredients you need. I will also be sending you my ebook. You will find my cookie recipe in the ebook and my royal icing recipe. The PDF will have the royal glaze recipe that I will be using in this video because I haven't posted it on the ebook. Basically, the ebook comprises only my YouTube recipes. So hopefully this will be shared in my next year's ebook. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you and you will be able to view the video. Okay, so now you should be able to see the video. Please let me know if you can't see it. Okay, so I guess we are ready to start. So I'm going to start with the cookie recipe. I am using 1 cup of unsalted butter. The butter is at room temperature, always room temperature. I use the paddle attachment. And we're going to whip this butter for about 1.5 minutes on medium speed. I add 1 cup of granulated sugar, and we're going to mix this as well on medium speed until they are combined. Proceed by adding 1 egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, you can add any extract you want, and a pinch of salt. And we're going to mix this until they are combined. So when they are combined, I start by adding my flour. You're going to need about between 2.5 cups and 3 cups. I start by adding 1 cup, and then I add the other cup, and at the end, I add them slowly to see if I need the whole 3 cups or just 2.5 cups. So this is where I'm adding the other cup. And you're going to switch to the dough attachment. If you are doing this with a hand mixer, this is where you can switch to mixing them by hand or use a wooden spoon. I ended up using 2.5 cups. You will know when the consistency is right, when the dough stops from sticking to the surface of the bowl. And this is the consistency you're looking for. It shouldn't be sticky at all. And it shouldn't be dry either. I wrap my dough in a plastic wrap and I set it in the fridge for 30 minutes. If you want to use the dough the next day, you can set it in the fridge overnight, and the next day you just remove it from the fridge, let it come to room temperature, and that is it. You can work with it. So I have my sugar sheets. You can find this on the website. They have other designs and you can get your own customized designs. The PDF will have the link to this product specifically. So what I do, in order not to buy a cookie cutter, what I do is I start by cutting one of these tags. You cut the sheets simply with your scissors. Just make sure that you cut them before removing them from the transparent plastic paper that they are on. Get as much as a clean cut as you can. And we're gonna peel this from the transparent paper. And you're gonna set your sheet, the one you cut, and the other ones back in the bag. I always put my sheets back in the bag because if you keep them for long enough in exposed air, they will dry out and you don't want that. So we're gonna just put them back in the bag so we can bake our cookies and proceed. So now that I have this transparent paper, I'm gonna use this to trace how I cut my cookies. What I do is I clean it with some rubbing alcohol. You can clean it with soap, whatever you want. So I'm dusting my surface with flour and we're gonna roll the dough, the cookie dough. When you're rolling the dough, don't flip the dough over, just turn it until you're happy with the thickness. If the dough is a bit sticky, you can simply dust more flour into it. Just don't dust too much flour so it doesn't dry. And we're going to use this tag to cut the desired shapes. So this is a good way to not invest in a cookie cutter. If you have a cutter that fits tags, that will be perfect. Otherwise, you can do this method and it works as well. So here we have our first cookie. And we're going to place these on a baking tray and refrigerate them for a bit before we do the small holes. So I'm using a piping tip and I'm just gonna do the holes so we can place some ribbons on these tags. So we refrigerate these because if the cookies are at room temperature, they will lose their shape more when you press the piping tip onto them. So if you see that they lost a bit of their shape, just push the dough back with your finger and it will be okay. I bake my cookies at 165 degrees for 10 minutes or until they are golden brown on the edge. Some people prefer to bake them more, that's up to you. What I do when they are, when I take them out from the oven, I rub my spatula on the cookies. They're still hot. This would eliminate any air bubbles created during the baking process. And you'll have a smooth surface to apply your icing, whichever type of icing you are using. and just transfer them on a cooling rack and let them cool at room temperature. So now we're gonna do the glaze. For this project, I'm gonna do a royal glaze. This is also known as the vegan royal icing. Now you will find let me pause this for a second. In the ebook I will be sending you, you'll find both of the sugar cookie recipe I have and my royal icing recipe. And you will be able to click on a small video icon next to each recipe, and this icon will transfer you to the YouTube video. Now for the sugar cookie on my YouTube, I made it using a hand mixer. So you will also see where to switch to the wooden spoon or just knead it by hand. And you will also find my royal icing recipe and the consistencies that you need. So this is why for this project I decided to make a royal glaze so you can see a new recipe. This recipe is also available in the PDF, not the ebook. The PDF will mention this recipe. So what I do is I add my powdered sugar, about 2 teaspoons. For each 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, I use about 2 to 3 teaspoons of corn syrup and about 6 to 8 teaspoons of water. I start with 3 or 4 teaspoons of water, and then I gradually add the remaining water to see, and I stop when I am happy with the consistency. So you can do this with your stand mixer, your hand mixer, and you can actually mix these by hand. So here I'm adding more water until I'm happy with the consistency. The consistency should be ribbon-like. You don't need it to be too watery or too thick. I'm going to show you the final consistency at the end, of course. So this is the consistency we're looking for. It's ribbon-like, it's not too thick, not too thin. So what I do is I transfer this to a bowl, and I cover the bowl with a damp towel, or here I'm using a damp paper towel, kitchen towel. And I leave this for a few minutes. And you will notice that all the air bubbles will come to the surface because I'm going to use the dipping method. You can, of course, you can transfer the glaze to a piping bag and just pipe these, but the dipping method is way easier. And with royal glaze, you will notice that it is more stable with the dipping method than royal icing. Royal icing that tends to like fall on the sides. Royal glaze is very stable. It dries way faster. So, so I'm just gonna cover this. The towel should be damp so the glaze doesn't form a crust. This also applies to royal icing. If you are using royal icing and you want to use the dipping method, also use the same process. So you can see in the video like some little air bubbles on the surface. So what you're going to do is going to use a toothpick to pop these bubbles. You can also use your trusting needle. And we're going to start by dipping the cookies. So you place the cookie, you tap on each side to make sure that all the sides are thoroughly dipped. You remove the cookie. and you shake off the excess. And then when you flip it, you're gonna shake it so that the icing is, so they get a cleaner surface, a smoother surface. And what I do is I tap on the back of my cookie so any excess air bubbles will come to the surface as well. With the dipping method, you're gonna notice more air bubbles than when actually piping them with a piping bag. But what you do is you use your toothpick or your trusting needle as well, and then you're gonna pop the bubbles. And you can notice that if you used royal icing before, you can notice that royal glaze is not as white as royal icing. If you want a glaze that is more white, you can use the any white gel color. I only used the white by Wilton, and it colors very well as well. So we're gonna dip all the cookies. You shake, remove the excess, flip it, shake it as well, and then you tap it in order to remove any air bubbles. Some of the bubbles will pop by themselves and others will need, you need to pop them with your toothpick. So we're gonna set these to dry overnight. As I've mentioned before, also cover your glaze or your royal icing with a damp towel, or transfer it to a airtight container. If you transfer it to an airtight container, make sure that you place a plastic wrap and that the plastic wrap touches the icing, whichever type you are using. You can set this in the fridge and use it later, whatever you prefer. So with royal glaze, you're gonna start noticing that it starts to crust within a few minutes. Your royal icing is gonna take an hour or so to crust, I believe. It depends on the humidity. But just to be on the safer side, leave them to dry overnight. Either it's glaze or icing. So as you can see, they are dry. Icing dries a little shiny. I mean, glaze dries a little shiny. Royal icing dries matte. Okay, so as you can see, it's dry and ready to start. It's ready to start it's ready for, okay, to cover with the sheets, to apply the sheets. So I have my sheets here and I'm gonna cut all the sheets. So I started with 7 cookies, but I'm at 6 because one of them fell on the floor and broke. So we're gonna be covering 6 cookies. The sheet comes with 12 different designs, I believe. So I have all my tags cut. Now I'm gonna peel them off from the transparent paper, so we can cut the small hole before applying them to the cookies. So these are pretty easy to peel off. So I'm gonna use the same piping tip that I used to make the hole in the cookies. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna press down on the sugar sheet, and it's so easy. Just press down and you will have the small little hole removed immediately. and that is it. It's super easy. So I'm gonna do this with all of the other sheets, and we can start applying them to the cookies. Now I have some corn syrup and a brush, and I'm gonna brush my cookies. Now, if you covered your cookies with royal glaze, I found that honey is better than corn syrup because corn syrup tends to be absorbed by the glaze and it doesn't give a maximum security to the sheet. So applying honey works best. If you are using royal icing, both corn syrup and honey work. And if your cookies are covered with fondant, you can use corn syrup, honey, or even water, but don't apply too much water. I mentioned all of these notes with in the PDF that I'm going to send you, so don't feel pressured to take the notes now. You're going to find everything in the PDF. So what you do is you add your sugar sheet, you smooth it out with your hand, just make sure that you get all of the edges. Like so, just press on the edges, make sure they are completely secure. And then we're gonna leave these to, oh, this is my seventh cookie, okay. We're gonna leave these to dry at room temperature for about 2 hours. And then we can proceed with attaching the ribbons, or you can put them in the cellophane bag. So here I have different designs. I don't know if you noticed, but I made some different designs as well. And just using a, this is a ribbon from the dollar store. And this is it. So you can put these on the tree, or you can put them in a cellophane bag. If you decide to put them on the tree, don't leave them for don't leave them for a few days, because the sugar cookie will dry out. They will become hard or well, not really pleasant to eat. And that is it. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can okay, so to see if we have any questions. So if you have any questions, please, you can turn your microphone on, or you can write your question in the chat.
How does it taste? Is the fabric, it's soft when you bite into it? Is it like a marshmallow taste? Or?
It's pretty much like wafer. No, it's better than wafer paper actually. It pretty much melts in your mouth. Either you apply this on a cake or a cookie. It's really, and it has a really beautiful smell. It smells like vanilla, sugary vanilla. It's really pleasant when you eat it either on a cookie or on a cake. it's better than wafer paper, way better.
Do you think this would work well with pictures, photograph of family members as well?
Yes, you can get any image you want on a sugar sheet. You just need to contact Sugar Art on by email or on their website. You can order any customized image you want, and they will print it out for you. You can do anything you want.
And one more question. After you finish putting the fabric on, can you also, like, let's say you want to make a border or something like that, can you use roll icing on top to?
Yes, you can you can do any border you want. Royal icing would be better than royal glaze. For any details or piping, royal icing is better than royal glaze. I found that royal glaze is better with the dipping method. You can add a royal icing border. I once on a cookie added a um, a border with edible gold flakes. So yes, you can add borders.
Borders and also little, what do you call it? Maybe candy pieces or fondant pieces or something like that. You can.
Yes, you can add fondant, of course.
Mhm. Now this, the fabric sheets are different from the icing sheets, right? Or
Yes, they are different. The icing sheets are are a bit more thick than the fabric. You can use both on cookies, and the fabric is more like a more bendable and more flexible. It's better. The fabrics are better when you are doing a like a cake, like the gift box cake that I made. They add like texture. For cookies, you can just use the sheets because you don't need to be adding like a more realistic texture. So sheets would work as well.
that's what we use for the tags. We use icing sheets, right?
Yes, the tags we used icing sheets, and for the gift box cake, we used fabrics. Okay, so I'm going to stay online if anyone has any more questions. If you don't, you feel free to exit the session whenever you want. Otherwise, I'm going to be sticking here for a bit longer. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I wonder also if we can get like a blank icing sheet. Maybe we want to paint on, can you paint on the icing sheets as well if you have a blank one?
Yes, you can paint on icing sheets. You can get blank ones. I don't know if they are listed on the website. I think they are. You can simply contact Sugar Art and they will give you all the information.
You mentioned you're going to have some Valentine's Day classes as well.
Yes, I will. Until now, I only have one or two ideas for Valentine. Still developing more ideas, but I'm certainly gonna do a cake project for Valentine's. And because in the previous class you asked me to make a meringue glass, I might do this as well. And I'm also thinking of making a full life class on how to how to bake, and decorate a cake from start to finish. It's going to be a bit of a longer class than these, but if anyone's interested, I'm thinking of posting a class on that as well. If anyone has any suggestions, I can do that as well.
to see a class also. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. I've seen like cookie boxes.
Cookie boxes. You mean like the cookies where they are 3D cookies and or you mean like petit four like the thing you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, something like that. But these are it's an um, open box, and I think the lid is separate. And
Mm-hmm.
you can also put these icing sheets on them as well. So
Okay.
they're like it. Yeah, you can like it's a box with a lid. You can open it up and maybe put little candy pieces inside.
Okay. Okay.
I-
Yes,
I'll
of
send you.
course.
I'll send you an email. We'll
Yes,
talk.
of course. Yes, please send me an email with all your ideas and I'll be happy to make classes.
Okay. I'm finding that I like the ideas of the icing sheets and the fabric sheets because sometimes you're not as experienced as most are with the icing yet. So it
Mm-hmm.
can still make a nice decorative cake and cookie without having to do all of the piping and the filling in, especially if you haven't had a lot of practice. I've taken,
Yes, they do. The amazing thing about them is, like I showed you here, that you only need a little practice with the dipping method, which is way easier than actually using a piping bag. And you can get any beautiful design with a fabric or a sugar sheet. You apply it on a cookie or a cake, and it looks super professional.
yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. I've taken
Yes.
quite a bit of classes, but I need to practice more before I make some. So this is a good alternative as well.
Yeah, practice is very important. I've been doing this for 4 years, I guess, but I've been working with the with sugar art products for less than a year, I believe, and I find them pretty easy to work with. I'm addicted.
Yeah, seems like fun. One final question. I wonder, can you spray like that little glittery spray? I forgot what it's called. Some type of, I don't know if it's luster dust or some type of spray that's kind of a glitter look to it. I think it would
Yes,
look
you
nice
can.
to these.
You can absolutely add edible glitter, the ones that are sprayable or the ones that come in little jars. You can also add luster dust. Um, they all work. Carmen, if you have any questions, please feel free to turn on your microphone or even type it in the chat. Oh, sorry. Okay, Callie, so happy to see you in this class as well. Have a good day. See you. I hope you'll be able to attend other classes as well.